12 years ago, early November of 2004, I was a pretty happy guy. I was in seminary. I was preparing to be a UU minister. Spoiler alert, it works out. I was living in Berkeley, California. I was in love with a woman I was pretty sure would be my wife, and to top it all off, the Boston Red Sox had just won the first World Series in 86 years, and my old senator, fellow Red Sox fan from Massachusetts, was about to win the presidency. And then a shocking thing happened. Against all odds, and even though they told all the pollsters they wouldn't, the evangelicals came out in force on election day and voted for the other guy. Again. And as we all know, he gained a second term. Super liberal Holy Hill, as the place where I lived up in Berkeley was called, where all the seminaries are nestled, it fell under a dark shadow. People were horrified, people were brokenhearted. I mean, really, I don't mean to make a joke out of it. People were hurt. A few days after the election, I stumbled into the office of an internship I had across the bay in San Francisco at the Fellowship of Reconciliation. And I was surprised to find my incredibly left supervisor whistling away at his desk in a much better mood than I had expected. First happy person I'd seen in days. He could tell I was surprised by his demeanor and that it demanded an explanation. He's one of these no-nonsense human beings who just launches right into stuff without an introduction or greeting. You see, here's the thing. When those who seek to divide us are out of office, they're still doing their terrible work. But it's in the shadows. Out of the eye where it can't be seen. In my work, I found it's easiest to know what's coming at us when it's forced into the light of day. My friends, this election has brought things out into the light of day that we haven't seen in public for a generation. In fact, over the past few months, we've watched as hateful words that have been finally banished from public view once again made frequent public appearances. As we all know, there's a notable rise across the country in hate crimes. Our black, Muslim, and immigrant houses of worship have been burned and graffitied, not with swastikas all the time, but with the name of a presidential candidate as the chosen symbol of hate. For good reasons, minorities and Muslims and women have come to fear for their freedom, for the safety of their bodies. I'm not talking politics and differences of opinion here. I'm talking very real conditions in society that make it possible for hate and bigotry to be acceptable in the public square. These conditions, when left unchecked, don't go anywhere we want to go. And the truth is, even though we feel like the world took a seismic shift in the last week, actually it didn't. It's still exactly the same country, same citizens holding the same hopes and dreams and fears. Only now, a whole bunch of those fears that have been hidden in the darkness are being brought out into the light and exposed for everyone to see, which is both incredibly painful and potentially productive. Because this racism and this sexism and this homophobia and this Islamophobia, which are the more specific names of those fears, they were with us all along, and in fact have been indelibly stained into the very fabric of this country since its founding 240 years ago. This is nothing new. What this election has done, should we choose to look at it this way, is to bring it to the surface, to reveal all that ugliness for the entire world to see. The question is, how are we going to respond to it? I believe that our response needs to be twofold. We must continue our work to build the world we dream of. We've got to continue that work. We've got to believe that that's possible. But we must also stand with those who will be threatened. We must answer the call to love because love will always trump hate. Always. And the truth is that we actually matter more today than we did last week. This congregation and the space it holds and the values it stands for are more relevant and vital and needed on this Sunday than they were last Sunday. Because today, even more than last week, we know that the work of those that benefit from our separation into divided camps are going to be forced out of the shadows and into the light of day where we can see it. And we must be there to answer the call of love. To be there for those who will need us. Those whose families are going to be threatened by immoral immigration policies. To be there for those who are sick, too sick to fight for the health care that's keeping them alive. We'll need to be there for women whose bodies will once again be under attack by legislation that will want to dictate all kinds of choices for them. For everyone in the LGBTQ community whose human rights and dignity will once again be under threat, we must once again answer the call of love. That's the call of Unitarian Universalism. That's it in a nutshell. And while it feels good to know that and to celebrate our values in the warmth of good and relatively easy times, our values really start to matter when the going gets tough. When the shadow creeps back over the hill and fear and hate begin to take control once again. It reminds me of my favorite quote from the Lord of the Rings epic. It's like the great stories, Samwise says to Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were, and sometimes you didn't want to know the end because how could the end be happy? I've thought that a lot this week. How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. I know now folks in those stories had lots of chances to turn back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something, that there's some good in the world, and that it's worth fighting for. I know that every single one of us in this room believes in that goodness too, or we wouldn't be here. And if you believe in this goodness, then maybe this too is the time and the story you were made for. Maybe now is the time to begin thinking about how to turn your sadness and anger into action because, while many of us have the right intentions, the world sure could use a few more of us to get up off of them. As the Unitarian Universalist Association President Peter Morales said this week, our voice is going to matter in the coming years. Our role, as always, will be to be a powerful voice for compassion and civil rights. Perhaps at times we even may be called upon to join with others to resist flagrant injustice. We have many parables about times like this, about what happens when demagogues take power and good people do nothing. Perhaps the most famous comes from Protestant pastor Martin Niemöller, who emerged in pre-World War II Germany as one of the most outspoken critics of Adolf Hitler. First, they came for the socialists, he said, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. I didn't know this, but in Pastor Niemöller's case, this was literally true. He ended up spending the last 7 years of Nazi rule in a concentration camp himself, surviving to share these prophetic words. It's also something that Dr. King spoke extensively about through his life, perhaps never more eloquently than when he said, "We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people." Human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts of people willing to be the co-workers of God. And without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the forces of social stagnation. We must use time creatively, he tells us, in the knowledge that the time is always right to do right. Time is always right to do right. I don't know about you, but I don't intend to stay silent. I don't intend to watch the hard-fought battle for the human rights and equal treatment of women and lesbians, for gay, bisexual, transgender, and genderqueer people to be rolled back. I don't intend to accept hate as a political position, but I do intend to answer the call to love early and often, and I do intend to resist any attempt to make it appropriate or acceptable to be hateful and xenophobic in the public square. And more than anything, I intend to continue to work to manifest through my words and actions the more loving and beautiful world I know is possible. Am I going to be alone in that? No. Okay. Our Unitarian ancestor, Theodore Parker, in the dark days before the Civil War, prophetically spoke these words, often paraphrased by Martin Luther King Jr. a century later in the continued struggle for racial equality. Look at the facts of the world, he said. You see a continual and progressive triumph of the right. He didn't mean conservative, he meant correct. I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve, complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I'm sure it bends towards justice. I very much believe in that moral arc of the universe, and that it does bend towards justice. But as Parker and King and so many others have told us again and again, that bending is not automatic or guaranteed. It will not roll in on the wheels of inevitability or out of the mouths of well-meaning but silent people who are sitting on their couch at home. He didn't say that, I did. That bending towards justice is always only accomplished through the very real blood, sweat, and tears sacrifices of people that struggle. In good times and in bad, to push us closer to the promised land, to heaven on earth, to a world that respects all its children the same. As King said, the moment is always right to do right, and we must use time creatively. And so now, we're going to use our time together creatively. Take a little practice step into the very thing we're talking about, recreating the world anew a little better. One of our modern UU anthems, Standing on the Side of Love. Who knows one? So that's a class. I'm not asking you to sing it yet. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So this was written by one of our longtime UU ministers, Reverend Jason Shelton. He's the Associate Minister for Music at our Nashville, Tennessee congregation. He's deeply committed to our Unitarian Universalist movement and is a unique gift for setting our values to music, having written several of our modern popular hymns like Morning Has Come, which we did last week, Fire of Commitment, a favorite of our youth group, Move Home, Turn the World Around. He, like me, believes the words we sing really matter. Or as he is fond of saying, what we sing is who we are. What we sing is who we are. And so he was horrified to realize, through the loving prodding of some of our colleagues, that his most famous hymn, Standing on the Side of Love, used the central metaphor of standing in a way that left a lot of people out from picturing themselves in the hymn and the action. This is the idea of ableism, of assuming that everyone's body works the same. And it's another growing awareness many of us need to work on. Now, with every new awareness that's been brought to me, I first met the idea of ableism like a tensing of my body and a resistance from my mind. And I've learned that's always evidence that I need to shut up and listen and learn from someone instead of closing off, as my body wants to. And I've come to see that ableism is very real and another way that we are falsely dividing ourselves. And what I've learned from anti-racism and anti-oppression work is when you make the world better for the marginalized, you actually make it better for everyone. It's a really important thing to understand. And as Reverend Shelton, who understands the power of words as he does, knows, he had to fix this one. So what he did was he asked us all to change the name of this song and to change the words as we sing them. So what I want everyone to do is take that pen off the front cover of the Teal hymnal. I want you to turn to page 1014. We're going to do some creative graffiti here. We are going to deface our hymnals for the betterment of the world. And I know this feels a little riskier, like is the minister really asking me to take a pen to this hymnal? I am asking you to do it, and do it like 5 times actually. So you're going to cross off, standing on the side, you're going to leave of love there. Okay? We're not standing on the side anymore. We're answering the call. Love. 1014, number 1014. So you just want to cross off, standing on the side, and replace it with answering the call. And you'll see when you flip the page, there's a couple other places to do it too. In the top left-hand corner, 3 places on that flip page. Wherever you see it, banish it. We are not standing on the side anymore. We are answering the call.